Hello, and welcome to another episode of Straight from the Training Ground, the podcast where we share our love for the beautiful game and the people out in the community doing beautiful things. And we have another such person just like that with us today, Eric Rossitch. We're glad to have him on our podcast this time. He is a graduate of North Carolina, where he won a club national championship playing soccer. He also worked with the women's team during his time there. He has coached numerous girls teams at the youth level. He has also worked with Atlanta United in the MLS, and most recently with the Seattle Reign in NWSL. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me, Jay. I'm excited to be here and chat with you.
Well, absolutely. And before we go on, I just do need to mention that we connected through the lovely Duke Tig community, and we were both pointing out he's got his Duke Tig sweatshirt on there, unannounced. We didn't plan this, and I busted out. There you go. So
Shout out Addie and Tiff.
Absolutely. So if you don't know what Duke Tig is, I urge you to check them out. It's a great company ran by Addie and Tiff. They co-founded it. They've done amazing things. I'm sure you would echo those same things. They provide some great things for coaches, notebooks, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, hats, but all kinds of great things. And they provide a great community. Eric, first of all, just explain a little bit about your soccer journey in general. Growing up, how did you get into coaching, and who has influenced you the most?
Yeah, so soccer's been a part of my life since my earliest memories, I guess. I remember being on my first ASO team, the Bulldogs, orange jerseys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always fun thinking about growing up with soccer in the US, like during, my years growing up, because it's so different than the landscape now. And, it was just still so fairly new, and not that many people played it. And, that obviously the access to watch it was
Oh, yeah.
difficult. I remember rarely, maybe it was a WPS game or an MLS game on Fox Soccer Channel occasionally, and an occasional Classico game or something like that. But it was really difficult to watch for a while. And then I remember when, the Premier League signed that deal with NBC Sports, and they had them then playing on Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings really early, and not necessarily a game that you always wanted or whatever. They would have their pick of the game, but I would get up at 6 a.m. and I'd watch those every morning. I loved it. The Eurosport magazine as well. I was always amped up to get that every month. My older brother and I would just be so excited when we got home from school and flip through that and see, the new gear, new stories, pictures of, because we didn't have Instagram, that was like kind of our like live Instagram to like kind of see what was going on in the soccer world as well. Yeah, one of my earliest memories too. I come from an immigrant family, and my grandfather and my grandmother just very, do-it-yourself, sustainable people. And so they had a garden in the back, they had a shed and everything. And my older brother and I, even though my grandfather didn't know anything about soccer, was like, hey, let's build some soccer nets for you. Also, me and my older brother went to the hardware store. We did all the measurements with my grandfather. We made these two little soccer goals, and we brought them home. And of course, my parents were probably upset about it because we ended up breaking a lot of things. But like, yeah, it was my life, and slowly got into obviously the club soccer scene, and did the whole travel thing and everything like that. And yeah, it was really special because it gave me a community. It gave me, a space where I could learn to be myself, learn, special values in life. And I think, yeah, it's cool to kind of think back about what it was, because now you have all these acronyms and, all the different leagues, and it's really cool that so many more people have access to the sport. But it's also, it's difficult with the politics expand with that, along with the access. So yeah, it's a different landscape. But I really valued the sport. I've met so many lifelong friends through it. It's really given me a life purpose as well. And I love to just share that with other people. And I'm really fortunate I've been able to so far make a career out of it. So that's been really special to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, myself included, can relate to that kind of story and growing up with soccer in this country. One thing I want to kind of dive into, we spoke a little bit off camera about, you won a national championship with the club team at North Carolina, and I think that's very cool. And I wanted to ask if you could explain a little bit more about club soccer at the college level. What was that experience like, and also what do you feel that can bring to kids as they go through college and they still want to play?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think it's kind of an under-discussed path for people. Um, and there's reasons for that. I was just, from my end, the reason I chose that path was, I grew up in North Carolina. A lot of my family had gone to the University of North Carolina, and I grew up a fan. To me, athletic excellence was University of North Carolina. Michael Jordan, Mia Hamm,
Sure.
Peppers, right? Like, all these big athletic names coming from North Carolina, and I knew that their teams were successful. And my brother also went there, and while he was there, he was playing on the club team and was involved in the women's team. And so I was able to go visit him. I saw games, I could see that, hey, okay, the level is really competitive, the level that he's playing at. And also getting involved with one of the most historic teams, athletic teams of all time in the women's soccer program, 23 national champions, 23-time national champions. So it was, that was something that I looked at it and I was like, hey, even though I'm not being recruited at this school, this is still something I really want to go to. I passed up Division III, Division II, small Division I schools that were looking at me because like I knew kind of what I wanted out of a school and what I wanted out of the next chapter of my life. And I wanted to be at a big school with, a diverse population, somewhere where, again, I felt like athletic excellence was, part of the atmosphere and part of the culture. And so, yeah, for me, that was the best opportunity. And I chose that and I have no regrets. I have, again, lifelong friends from it. It was for me a built-in community when I arrived at the school. I think, for the reason it's not discussed is probably one, just the inconsistencies of it. So, it depends on the school you go to, right? The larger the school, the larger the population of the school, the student enrollment. And so the larger the school, there's going to be, probably a higher, bed of talent there. Different schools have different investments in their club teams and their organizations. So the resources vary greatly as well. And then, the culture within those club organizations and even like within the club sports at that school, our team was, taken very seriously. And maybe there were some other club sports at the school that maybe they weren't necessarily run the same. And so, yeah, I think the inconsistencies of that, and obviously you have to try out as well. So at the University of North Carolina, it's, I don't know what the numbers exactly are now, but you're talking about over 25,000 undergrad students, right? And even grad students are included in that as well, because they're allowed to try out. So, you're talking about, hundreds of kids going out to a tryout, and then over the course of a week, getting dwindled down to the maybe 8 to 10 players they may take that year. And that's really difficult. So, I think another reason why it's not a common path is that it's not guaranteed. But yeah, I mean, for me, the reasons why it's great is one, it's, it's a little bit less of a commitment, right? So, you're not training every single day. You don't have 2-a-days. You're not traveling as much as they are, right? It's not necessarily, as year round, if you will. So it's like 3 to 4 trainings a week. You still have that community. You're still training at a high level, but you have a little bit more autonomy in your schedule. You have a little bit of autonomy in, how you manage your time and, maybe if you want to play another club sport or you want to get involved in other extracurriculars around campus and you don't want it to kind of center your identity necessarily around it, it gives you other options. Now, me personally, I was heavily involved in soccer and it was, core part of my identity, but it didn't have to be if you didn't want it to be, and I felt like it was a really good path for, people that maybe they came and transferred in from another school and they were playing Division I somewhere and they transferred because they didn't have a good experience. I personally had 11 kids on my club team from high school go play at the Division I level, and only one, maybe two of them finished all 4 years and played at the university that they started at. And I know that's not everybody's story. And, I think it's important to do your research. It's important to, things can happen, injuries happen, coaching changes happen, all that stuff. But I think it's really important to go to the school that is best suited for you. I think that that's number one, right? Like what
Sure.
do you want out of a school? And, got to look past beyond school a little bit. Like what is going to give me tools and what is going to give me a life experience that's going to help me later on as well. And so I think club soccer really offers that. And so I help a lot of the kids that I've had in the past. I give them my experience, and I've had plenty of kids go to Division I, Division II, Division III, but also go to bigger schools that they weren't recruited at and play club soccer and have a fantastic time. And I think it's important to maintain your love for the game. And, people do that in different ways, and club soccer offers just another path for that, where, you're probably less likely to get burnt out. You have a bit more autonomy, and so,
No,
yeah, there's pros and cons to it.
Yeah, sure, but that's a great point I think you make, and I think it's just great to hear you talk about that. I think people should check that out. Anybody that ever ends up watching this, keep your eyes and ears open to all the possibilities because, like you said, you're still playing, you're training at a high level several days a week, and it's all about having a positive experience. So, Eric, you move into the coaching world. You've worked, like you said, with the women's team a little bit at the University of North Carolina. You've coached at the youth level. You've worked at the MLS level, you've worked at the NWSL level. So, what would you say have been some of your biggest challenges so far in your coaching career?
Yeah. I think in terms of like the actual coaching at Rain, I arrived at Rain shortly after the fall of the DA, the Development Academy, and so at the time the Rain was a DA club, and had a lot of the best local talent. And because the DA fell, I think about like half the players left and went to other ECNL clubs and the other high level platforms that were available in that area. And so when I arrived to Rain, it was kind of about, all right, how do we retain the players that we do have, and how do we essentially rebuild? And that was kind of the rise of the GA as well at the time. And so that was a really fun challenge and a fun project because it was, all right, we're battling a very saturated market with a lot of talent. Not to go into too much detail, but there was basically a falling out of Rain and the other local clubs when there was an initial agreement that Rain would essentially operate like, the local professional pathway, where all the local clubs would then send their best players into that pathway. And that, by a couple of reasons, fell through. And so there was this kind of bad blood, if you will, between Rain and the other local clubs and everything. And so, yeah, rebuilding the reputation, rebuilding the talent pool. It was a fun challenge, and it was something that I took a lot of pride in because I believed in what we were doing. I think in terms of structure, in terms of leadership, in terms of what we were able to offer, I think was very professional. And we were working with maybe not necessarily professional talent, right? And so, but it was fun in that way because I believed in what we were doing, and I still believe that the strongest form of marketing is word of mouth. And so, and Amy Griffin, our executive director up there, who brought me in, and I'll talk about her later, but she's definitely one of my heavy influences in my coaching career. Is she would never talk about other clubs in the area. She would always be like, I can tell you what we can offer. I can tell you who we are. But I'm not gonna bash anyone. I'm not gonna tell you what other people are. Like, this is who we are and what we can offer. If you want to be part of that, great, let's do it. And I'll be really prideful about it. And so, yeah, I think that was a big challenge, but I think we did end up, being able to rebuild, being able to get, some strong teams on the national level and be able to send, most of the kids on our top team are going off and getting, college scholarships or playing in college somewhere. And so, I think at the end of the day, that's what we're about, right? Is serving players. Yes. As a professional academy, we want to be able to produce professional players, which we have. Niku Purcell was the first player that came out of our academy that, was signed to a Rain contract. She's a goalkeeper up there, and she's a fantastic human being, truly a pro. And I know we'll talk about it later, kind of what a pro mindset looks like. But yeah, it was cool to kind of see all that work from the academy pay off, and hopefully that there's more people coming down the line like her that can, enjoy the, I guess, benefits of being in a pro academy and being treated like one, and being treated, like, soccer is really important, but also, development is number one, and not necessarily winning at the youth levels. But, what is and this is where Amy comes in. I got a really good understanding of what does a player's journey look like from when they're really young all the way to when they are pro. And like, what does that look like in the different ages and stages? What are the characteristics of players? What is the IQ level we need to be seeing? And what's important, basically, like what are the measurements, what are the KPIs that we should be looking at, especially early on. And too often, as you know, around the US, it's so centered around winning and the result of a game. And that's just so far from the truth, and so far from really developing not only actual talent, but also the love for the game, and that's how kids get burnt out. That's how kids lose their development pathway, and ultimately, aren't put on the path to success. So anyways, that was probably one of the bigger challenges as far as, actually being at at an academy or at a club. And that was like a fun challenge to be able to live every day, be consistent, attract talent, retain talent, recruit kids. And we had a lot of players that we had in our academy basically recruit other players in the other ECNL clubs and all of that to ultimately come. And so that was really cool. It was like, all right, hey, we're doing something right here. Some people want to stay, people want to come in, and I think if they're learning and loving it, that's the best sign that you're doing something right,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I was going to say, welcome to youth soccer in America, right? But
right.
So you kind of teed this next question up right for me. So I appreciate it. In working at that level with the NWSL and professional players, from what you've seen, what separates girls with potential from the girls who actually make it at the professional level?
Yeah. I think there's a couple things, mentally, obviously, I think is essentially the top thing, right? Like there's so much talent here in the US. There's so much talent across the world. There's so much talent in the, in the youth pools here. I think when, even when you look at, the college game versus the pro game, the ones that separate themselves are the ones that are disciplined, I guess, and are able to receive feedback and apply it, are able to be reflective. I think the ones that have a closed mindset, the ones that think that they've already made it, think that they don't have anything to learn, that think that they've already mastered or perfected things. I think like that's ultimately what sets people back. And that can stem from so many factors, right? Like it can stem from having an environment where you were put on a pedestal for so long, right? Where you didn't have to hold standards, where you didn't have to show up to training, where you didn't have to do the things you needed to do because you were in an environment where you could just be the best, or you could show up and be successful on the field. Well, at the pro level, and when you make the step to Division I, and then especially when you make the step to the pro level, everybody there was the best team best person on their team at some point. You're competing with the best of the best at that point, and everyone is getting better every day. And so you have to figure out what is going to separate you every single day. You have to make sure that your nutrition, you're disciplined in your nutrition, you're disciplined in your sleep schedule, you're disciplined in your off-field training, you're disciplined in your film sessions, you're disciplined in your IDPs that you create with coaches. I think discipline is ultimately the number one factor that I've seen. I also think identity is important too. It's one thing that we would talk with a lot of our kids about, and had a lot of conversations with Niku about, and I think Niku is a really good representation of it. But it's important to have an identity outside of soccer as well. Soccer is something that you do. It's not something that you are, right? It can be a part of you, but it doesn't define you, right? So when you're not starting, right, if soccer does define you, if that's how you perceive it, if you're not starting, if you're not getting the minutes that you want, if you're not getting on the team that you want, if you're not getting the contract you want, you're all of a sudden, your world is crumbling, right? Whereas if it's part of your identity, right, when things get rough, you can lean on these other parts of your identity, whether that's, other things that you're interested in, other hobbies, or that's your family, or that's your school, or maybe it's another job, or, whatever it might be. You can lean on those other parts of your personality to know that, hey, I think this isn't personal. It's not something that, this isn't going to define me. This one moment, this like rough, stretch here, I'm more than this. And I think having different parts of your identity, and I think people would be surprised at the pro level, most of them have other hobbies, right?
Yeah.
And they have other passions, right? Fallon Tillis-Joyce is one that I love too. She's the goalkeeper for Manchester United right now, one of the women's national team players. And she's really passionate about marine biology. And what she's involved in off the field is just so cool. I mean, she'd volunteer at the local aquarium. She would, create her own content online. She would, I know, interact with a bunch of local schools and colleges and everything. And like that was just so cool to me. And she is one that's literally at the top of her game, right? I mean, she's playing for starting probably the number one for the women's national team. She's playing on one of the best club teams around the world. I mean, so I think, again, for anyone to say like, oh, well, soccer has to be your whole personality for you to make it, it's just not true, and I actually think it's the opposite. I think it's important to have other parts of your identity in order for your soccer to actually be consistent and be the best that it can be. I was going to talk about Megan Rapinoe real quick, because that was again one of just the definitely one of the most special experiences that I had, is to work with her. And I think I always tell kids, like, that who Megan Rapinoe is determined what she achieved, right? So, she's not an Olympic gold medalist and a Ballon d'Or winner and a World Cup winner. And then, like, that's why she's famous. That's why people like her. That's why she's been successful, all that stuff. It's the other way around, right? Like, who she is has determined the level of player that she was, right? Because she showed up every day and treated people well, because she showed up every day and wanted to learn, right? When I was a video analyst at Reign, I mean, again, you're talking, Ballon d'Or winner, World Cup winner, Olympic gold medalist. At halftime, she would, if I had a clip for her and I wanted to walk through spaces that were on that she should be taking advantage of, little things that she could tweak, she would be right in it with me. Hey, what do you think? Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. At no point would she ever look down at any of the staff and be like, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't trust you. You're not looking out for me. I have nothing to learn. Her ability to be coachable and to learn and to want to get better every day. Like, I mean, it's truly unreal, right? It was like watching Michael Jordan at training. She just like demands so much of herself and demands so much of the people around her. It was really special. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of mention that, because that's something that, I'm very grateful for witnessing and being around her, and getting to kind of share that.
So I'm getting from you, being coachable, your mindset and discipline are very important at those levels. I think that's great for people to hear from someone like you as well. It's always amazing if you ever have the opportunity to meet someone like that, the behind the scenes. To me, it's even better when you find out what a good person they are. Everyone knows their accolades, their resume, like you said, what they've accomplished, but to find out that they're a good person behind the scenes makes all that much better, at least in my opinion. Yeah. 100%. So, what would you change about youth soccer and the current landscape we're in 2026?
Man. Whew. Let's say on a structural level, I think that things need to be more localized.
Mm-hmm.
You
mean not traveling 4 states over for a game?
I mean, the fact that 13-year-olds are flying multiple times in a regular season to go play a game or 2 games, like, it's insanity, and it's a waste of money. And you're not only, excluding people, but also those kids aren't getting better the way that they should. And it's sad to see ECNL clubs and GA clubs and all that. They're so worried about losing talent or, I guess getting a bad perception or something like that. And you're like, again, if you're really if you're in it for the right reasons, if you are truly in it for the kids, then that the more that they can play quality competition, right? The more that they can get the ball rolling, the more decisions that they can make, the better that they're going to get. And you can, oftentimes, especially in these big markets, you can get like so much good competition down the road. And instead, people are driving 10 hours, flying 4 hours. Like, it's crazy. And so, I think, if you're truly in it for the right reasons, you understand what development looks like. And then also, if you're doing something the right way, if you're creating a positive environment, you shouldn't be worried about what's going on down the road. And that's my personal, that's my personal opinion. But like, if you are, and that's something I take pride in over the course of my career, is every environment that I've created, kids are learning and they're loving it and they want to stay. And I've brought people in, because that's what it's about. If you're creating a positive environment, if you're creating a competitive environment, if you're caring about the individual, people will come back and people will want to be there. And so this idea that, oh, we can't scrimmage this club down the street because they're going to take our players. You're like, if everyone was playing in the same platform, you wouldn't have to worry about the platform of influencing it. But also, again, if you're doing something right, if you believe in what you're doing, shouldn't have to worry about those players walking out.
Yeah, absolutely. I it feels like you're always selling something. And like you said, I think it would be so much better at the local level. And again, if you're just joining us, we're with Eric Rossitch. He has worked with the women's team at the University of North Carolina. He's worked at the MLS level with Atlanta United and most recently with the Seattle Reign. Eric, it was great meeting you through the Duke Tig community. That's kind of how we originally connected. And I said, hey, man, I'd love to have you on our podcast. And you agreed. So here we are. It's been great talking soccer with you. Wish you nothing but the best as you continue through your coaching journey. And until next time, straight from the training ground.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate you.